It's time. It's not Friday, it's Wednesday. Welcome to Live at the Nutmeg Tavern special edition because, well, we weren't going to necessarily be here on Friday, so we wanted to have a live stream anyway. So welcome, come on in. I'm your host, John Townsend. We're going to be talking all fun things 18th century, especially secret formulas and trade secrets. I love those kinds of things from the 18th century. I am joined by Ryan behind the bar.
Hello.
There he is. No special drinks today, right?
Not today.
Just what we bring in on our own. It's bring your own drink. On the other side of the time vortex.
What the heck? Oh, there we go.
There it is.
Sorry about that.
Talk about
That's the second time that's happened.
technological snafus.
Hey everyone, sorry about that. What a day.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, we're back. Everything's good.
Secret formulas having to do with audio on live stream? No, that's not what we're going to do. Let's see. It's hot. It is hot outside. We spent all day outside shooting in the steamy weather, doing hard manual labor. And I had a lot of fun. But you got to drink a lot, let me tell you, out there in the hot sun. And the rest of the week, it's supposed to be 90 degrees every day, and we still have a lot of things to shoot outside. So it was fun, wasn't it, Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
The topic for today is a special book and what's in it. This is one that it's pretty much hot off the presses. It's called The Gentleman's Companion, The Tradesman's Delight, and it's got sort of industrial formulas. So it's a cookbook per se, but not for food, but sort of how to do interesting processes. And it has a lot to do with dyeing and painting and metallurgy and those kinds of things. Those are always fascinating topics. Of course, now what we know about certain things, the underlying science of these, it makes some of them just straight up hilarious. This book was printed in 1735. And I thought I would go through some of these and we would talk about the formula and, have some fun with it. So let's look at the first one. Chapter 2 starts off with a section on dyeing leather, or as he says, skins. So he talks about different colors. Now, normally when I think about dyeing leather, I think you're dyeing it black, you're dyeing it brown, you might be dyeing it white, or trying to turn it white for different things. But he's turning things all kinds of color. Here is shading it green. Take the leaves of nightshade, poison, bruise them in a mortar, strain out the juice, dissolve 2 ounces of alum, half an ounce of verdigris, that's poison too. Heat them gently over the fire, suffering it to stand 24 hours. Strike the skin over while it's warm, suffering it to dry. Do it again until it takes the color. That will be very lively. I don't recommend licking this leather after it's done. So what is number 2 here? Number 2 is marbling paper or books. I thought this was great. I'm gonna flip that slide, Aaron. There he is. Yes. He's trying to do 2 things at once, which you really can't do. To marble books or paper, the best way, take 4 ounces of gum arabic, dissolve it in 2 quarts of fair water, then provide several colors mixed with water in pots or shells. I thought that was funny. Shells, and with particular pencils to every color, sprinkle them by way of intermixture upon the gum water, which must be in a trough or some broad vessel. Then with a stick you curl them, draw them into streaks, to what variety you please, which is done. Hold your book or books close together, only dip the edges on the top of the water and the colors very lightly, which done, take them off, and the plain impression of colors in the mixture will be on the leaves. Do it as well on the ends as well the front in a like manner, and in this manner you may do paper by dipping it on the flat as also linen cloth. So here is a couple of examples. As you've probably, maybe if you're interested in marbled paper, you've looked at marbling paper on like YouTube. You'll find various things. Here's a piece of marbled blue paper. Really, this has got a nice gold color in it. Marbling is fascinating. You know, I have not seen any fabrics marbled. I think that would be really interesting from the time period. Marbled paper is used. He used it right here in books. He even kind of paper is a sort of a secondary thought. He was talking about books. Now this has a marbled paper on the cover. What is going on? Be careful, Aaron. Marbled paper on the front, but he was talking about the edge paper. Can you see the edge of this? This one is marbled along the edge on the top, on the front here, and the marbling even matches the marble on the end papers. And it's really neat because the marbling goes from this front page just falls off, but the inside page is marbled also. The marbling goes all the way across. It matches this whole sheet of paper. So somehow they put it down on the vat and turned the book and then went to, I don't know how they did it. Man, that is an amazing marbling job.
It's crazy.
And he was describing it there in 1735. This book is from 1845, 110 years later, and they were still doing, obviously, a very, very similar process. What's number 3 here?
Let's talk about what this book is that you're reading from one more time.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are piling in.
The book is The Gentleman's Companion, Tradesman's Delight, and it's full of sort of trade secrets of various trades in the early 18th century, 1735. So he's got lots of different strange recipes in here. There are even some food recipes, but most of them are recipes for strange trades. Or, you know, like marbling paper, how are you going to do it? Of course, marbling paper, it's one of those visual things. You know, you can read that whole paragraph and go, what? You know, whereas, you know, one picture definitely is worth 1,000 words on this one. Okay, so number 3. Yeah, here we go. How to recover faded colors in cloth or silk to take spots, stains, pitch tar, which is impossible, rosin, grease, wax, oil out of silks, stuffs, woolens, linens to preserve them from the danger of worms, moths, and other. Man, this does everything.
It almost feels like an infomercial.
You're right. It's like blah, 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 blah. Take of unslaked lime, 2 ounces. So unslaked lime, that's quick lime. The ashes of the bark of oak trees, so that's probably going to have a lot of tannic acid in it, and the unslaked lime is a base, so we're going to get a reaction right off the bat. Of like quantity, put them in a quart of fair water, mix them well, stand back, that's what I would do. Let them settle for the space of an hour, then draw off the clear part, and therewith wash the cloth, cover over it with a hard brush, and by twice or thrice doing it, it will look fair and bright. My suggestion is that the fabric would probably fall apart within a week or 2. It'll look good after it's washed, but man, that sounds like it's going to be really hard on it. But there's a whole section here about cleaning fabrics, taking to make soap to take grease and spots out. Another excellent way of doing the same thing. I like the way that it's like, here's one way to do it, here's another way to do it, here's another way to do it. Very often on these guys. A good way to take spots of oil out of cloth. It's actually impossible, but let's see. Next one, here we go. I can find it. Which one is this? Oh, yeah, to perfume clothes. Take the best cloves an ounce, dry them in an oven, beat them to a powder. Do the same with the like quantity of the wood of rhubarb, so I'm guessing the stalk, and cedar. Sprinkle them in your box or chest, and they will not only cast a curious scent, but likewise preserve them from moths and worms. So yeah, we're familiar with cedar boxes, and here they're using cloves, which are pretty stinky, and I don't know about the rhubarb thing. I've never heard it used like that. That's what's so fun about these recipes. What's the next one here? An ointment or perfume to remove. Oh, this was good. To remove an evil scent that has tainted the brain, etc. Right? We're going to need a lot of this. That's all I can say. Take the oil of bayberries, half an ounce of the powder of frankincense, a dram, oil of mace, which is related to nutmeg, so you know it's good, a scruple, so not that much, as much of the oil of turpentine, and mix them well together. Keep them in an essence bottle. So this is like a little smelling salt, something you want to. So if you get the evil tainted brain thing, you uncork your little vial, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna be making some of that tonight. That's for sure. This is good stuff. I mean, the book is worth it for that one right there.
Aaron, is the link for this book in the description or anything? No. Okay.
No, it isn't. Maybe he'll make that happen. Here we go. Chapter 11 has to do with painting, I think. Yeah, painting and such. Like, not house painting, but painting portraits. What pencils are to be used in painting a face, how to dispose them, directions to paint a face in oil color, and what mixtures are requisite for garments. Isn't that strange that we need here directions for how to paint faces? I mean, it's like you can't describe that in a paragraph.
But that part's wild.
But that's what he does anyway. I mean, it's like, well, here are how you make the colors to paint a face.
Yeah.
I couldn't make a face look like a face to save my life. Certainly not by reading any of this. Your pencils, how small soever, ought to have a stick about 9 inches long, or cut or sharpened at the farthest end to a point. And when you draw a face, lay together two duck quill flitch pencils, 2 goose quill flitched, 2 pointed and 2 bristled, the pairs being exactly like, and when you are to use them, having your palette in readiness upon your thumb, take them in your right hand, put the ends, and then it just goes on, and it talks about how you're supposed to steady your hand, and then, what colors you're supposed to use for the shadows, and it's like, man.
Somebody in the chat's asking some of the symptoms for tainted brain. Do you have any idea?
I think all you have to do is read the news today.
Oh man,
there's a lot of. I was like, maybe it's just feeling funky.
I don't know.
And it's the evil of tainted brain. So
maybe that's that thing that Aaron talks about where he hears John's voice in his dreams because
it is probably that. No, I mean it's like could it? No, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It's like mental issue, anxiety, tainted brain. Maybe if I keep reading.
Why would an evil scent trigger your tainted brain? On to the next one.
I don't know. I'll be working on that one. That's the mystery for today.
So we're on, is it page 96?
Yeah, page 96. So not only is there the section on painting and coloring different kinds of leather, and here's this whole section on metals and metallurgy, which is very curious. Why did I click this one? Yeah, so he talks about how gold is, it's strongly inveigled against the transmutation of metals. Okay, so colors, where's the section I wanted? He talks about drawing silver out into, so an ounce of fine silver may be drawn out into a 1,400 yards. So they're taking 1 little ounce of silver and pulling it into a real thin wire. He's talking about how that can do that. And dealing with where copper comes from and following veins of silver and finding copper. Some really, really fun pieces about that. Lead is frequently found in silver mines. I was confused about that. Now it gets really crazy when we move on to how to do things with metals. And I'm only a minor.
Page 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Page 100.
This one's got some crazy.
Yeah, it's
stuff
like
on
all over the place on this one. I mean, usually if you read about hardening, tempering, or annealing metals, making them, changing the hardness of them, it has to do almost all with heat it up to this particular degree and you cool it off, fast, slow, whatever, right? And that changes it changes the metal's hardness. It might make it harder, it might make it softer. It depends on the metal. It depends on exactly how fast or how slow that you basically cool it, what temperature it was at. Not so much with these directions. So here's the first one. To soften brittle or stubborn iron, take the juice of coltsfoot and hemlock, and when your iron is hot, steep it therein and it will become ductile. Or you may do it by often quenching it in linseed oil. Okay, now the last part, quenching it in the linseed oil, that makes complete sense. Hemlock and coltsfoot? What? How to make a powder of soft metals? Or where's the one with the to make iron or steel so soft that you may twist it at pleasure? Take the gall of an ox and mix it with oil of turpentine and urine. Heat your metal and strew it upon powder of vitriol, then wash it all over with the materials before mentioned till it becomes somewhat cool and it will be very flexible. What?
Yeah.
Instructions to harden soft iron. Take a decoction of vervain and house leek juice and the juice of horehound and radish or rue and dissolve them with alum powder. Okay, where's Jamie Tyree?
Right.
Okay. Have you ever tried any of these things? I mean, I don't know how to harden all manner of tools, and it starts off with the leaves or the juice of zinc foil.
Did you read the onion one yet?
Yeah, where's the onion?
It's in there somewhere. That one's weird
Yeah,
too.
here it is. This is the to make iron or steel as soft as copper, the better. To engrave them upon, take chalk or alum, bruise them well together. Being wet with the juice of an onion, daub it over the metal with a finger. Daub it over your metal a finger thick. So that's super thick. Thrust it into the fire, suffering it to burn till it comes clear, and it'll answer your expectation. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's I don't think that's gonna work. Sometimes.
You never know until you try.
That's true.
So there's a wonderful section on making inks. To make the best common or black ink, to make red ink. Another way to make red ink. Here is make ink for the convenience of carriage in powder, so making powdered ink. And here we go. To write letters invisible by fire. That's we're familiar with the juice of a lemon or onion, and onion, temper them well, and so we're making secret writing there. Also, the next one down, take well-dried paper, having dissolved a quantity of alum and gum water therein, suffering to writing to dry, dip the whole paper under water, and the letters will appear whiter than the rest. They may be plainly distinguished and read. So this one's got lots of that kind of stuff. How to clean foul gloves without wetting. Dry cleaning your gloves. How to make water boil and sparkle. How to play at 9 pins. To make a raspberry or a gooseberry fool to stew oysters. So it's got some medicine things here. An excellent ointment for the gout. So you can make food, you can kill lice, I mean, it's got everything. This is the recipe book for me. It's got everything you need in it.
Somebody asked if we use any of those methods for ink in the ink that we sell.
I did not go through all the ink recipes. Ours is probably it's a very simple ink that we make. It's got gum arabic in it, like some of these inks did. This is a gall ink, which is iron gall ink, which we talked about in the writing ink episode. This red ink is a lot like our black ink, very simple gum arabic, and so yeah, there's a bunch of different. There's the green ink using. Oh, here we go. To make ink that will make an impression as that of printers, they use lamp black. So it's similar, although this one's using oil. Whew. Lots and lots of fun formulas.
There we go. Man, I don't know what that is. Am I like bumping a cord or something?
It's all that technological stuff you got back there.
Nonsense.
What do you think, Ryan?
Somebody just commented that it sounds like somebody had a bunch of extra year and was trying to create an industry to sell it in, which is, yep, that's what this book's
You got
about.
some questions for me, Ryan? What do you think?
Yeah, sure. How was shoe polish made in the 18th century?
Well, you've made black ball,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, beeswax and fats, usually tallow, turpentine, and lamp black, if you want it to be black.
There you
If
go.
not, if you just want some waterproofing, no lamp black. Yep. How did merchant ships transport clay pipes or other fragile things?
The packaging of those kinds of items can be very difficult, and many times they were packaged in wooden crates or barrels, and they would just fill them in with Excelsior, wood sawdust shavings. We don't think about those items as much today in packaging because we've got all these fancy, bubbles and all that kind of stuff. They used wood shavings, and they had all these industries that created massive quantities of wood shavings. So there was a lot of sort of as a byproduct of some of these industries, massive quantities of wood shavings, which would be great for packaging those kinds of things. Other times, items were actually made sort of, like a modern day Pringles can, about how all the chips are shaped just right and they go into the thing. Well, they would do the same kind of things with pottery, get them all so that they would go together like bowls, nest them all together, and they would sort of protect themselves. Of course, if one broke, it might break them all, but something like that.
Somebody else asked about what shipping crates were like back then.
We talked about it in last week's video where we were talking about coopering, making barrels, and the wooden barrels are the cardboard box of the 18th century. So that's what all that stuff is getting packed into.
Okay. On Super Chat, Aaron Howitt comes in. Did you see Babish give you guys a shout out?
Yep.
We
Yes,
did.
that was one of the things I was going to mention that straight up front. Super thank you to Binging with Babish for mentioning us in his 7 things coming from the Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
7 million subscribers.
Right, 7 million
Big
subscribers.
celebration episode.
It's like massive, of course, and we're talking about making salt pork, Lord of the Rings, and then he mentioned our salt pork episode. So cool. Thank you, Binging with Babish. Thank you for everyone who's talked about that.
Keltoid5 comes in on Super Chat. Oh my gosh, this is just the thing I've been looking for. Just ordered mine. So, talking about the book.
Great.
Yeah, that's a fun book.
Yeah, it is.
And that is in the description. Now I threw it in
Oh,
there.
cool. Thanks.
Yep.
Amber Crystal Doter says the U.S. GPO has a hand binding operation and still doesn't still does marbling. Here's a video that shows, and they have other videos of the process, and there's a link there if you're interested in seeing that.
Cool.
Keltoid5 on Super Chat again. Will some of these things be covered in future cooking episodes? Please, 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 please.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, we could do that. Matthew Harvey comes in on Super Chat. What became the Bowyers and Fletchers, bowyers, from the 16th and 17th century? Horace A. Ford's book, The Theory of Practice Archery, seems to suggest archery has become less widely spread.
Well, so he's talking about archery getting sort of disappearing from the 15th century into the 18th century. Well, I mean, obviously it changes its nature because of firearms coming into popularity, and so it's not as important for military things and even for sporting things. But there's still some of that going on. It's sort of like one of those, sort of a pastime. Instead of it being an important part of everyday life, it becomes an extra.
Sue O'Connor on Super Chat. My favorite part of an old cookbook is the strange advice at the end.
Yeah.
You've now brought me a whole book of them.
Yes.
Yeah, that's I really like that book. It's a lot of fun. So thank you to all those folks on Super Chat. Mark Campbell came in on the chat, and I just thought this was funny. So his comment is, I've gotten all my friends into this channel. We're the only frat boys who watch, probably.
Oh, you might be surprised.
We've gotten quite a few frat boy messages, and they're always fun. Will you do an episode about metalwork?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We have so many amazing.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what the plan is for the homestead so people get the scope of that.
Yeah, so the current, it's like we built the cabin, but the cabin's built basically in a field of where we want to do all sorts of different projects. And it gives us a spot, a location, to do things like the pole lathe video and do woodworking, primitive woodworking things in that setting. We're also going to be working on, basically the major industries and resources that we have available to us. So, hey, here's all this wood. We're surrounded by woods. How do we work with them? We're sitting on this giant mound of clay, right? So the ground is not good for agriculture, but it's great clay. So we're going to be working on clay projects, bricks and pottery and all those kinds of things. And all these different trades lock together too, because another thing we want to do is some primitive, simple blacksmithing things. So we've got a spot for a little blacksmithing, a location to do metalwork. Who knows, we might cast a little metal, we might do this or that, and each one of these locks together. It's like, well, you need some of these ceramic things to do the blacksmithing, and you definitely need the blacksmithing to help you do the woodworking, and you need wood parts for your blacksmithing. So it's this this interlocking set of trades that goes together, and it's the kinds of things that were done on homesteads or in small village settings all through the 18th century here in North America, as well as other parts of the world. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be working on, kind of interlocking all these fun and primitive trades.
Hey, real quick, someone earlier threw something in about the tainted brain thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were wondering, what if it was like you were hungover? The evil,
well,
you know what I mean? And it's like...
It definitely is. It's like an ointment or perfume to remove an evil scent that has tainted the brain.
Yes.
So it's well...
I mean, that's interesting.
I think that sometimes, yeah.
Well, or maybe they're like, oh, it's any evil scent. It's like, oh, I went by a factory and it smelled so bad.
Yeah, it's just like stuck with you, right?
Right? It's like, oh, I need something to breathe to,
but also,
drive out the bad.
Sometimes you'll have the smell that actually gives you a headache. Like, I don't know
if
you've
yeah.
ever had that.
Yeah,
so.
Sure. Yeah, there you go.
Somebody in the chat says, how does one get a job there? Man, I don't think
job
really
job where? What are we talking
here,
about?
At Townsend's. Here.
So the next question is...
We're all booked up. I'm not getting a lot of questions. I'm getting tons of funny comments.
So here's my next show and tell. This is fun. I don't have any pictures for you guys on this guy. This one I got in just the other day, actually yesterday. It's Bailey's Algebra. And so I was just skimming through it. Now, some of these books I'm getting because we're printing more books and I want to have a period look to them, even though they're, of course, printed in a modern paperback kind of a way. It's fun to have the graphics. So I use period books as the basis to make the reprint books look interesting. So I got this one, and Bailey's Algebra. This one's from 1834, I think. 1839. And so I was looking through it, and, it's got simple, arithmetic in it. But what I thought was hilarious was the questions. So it's got a lot of story questions. I always love story questions. Each one is a little mystery, and but of course we're used to a train coming from this direction's going this many miles an hour or whatever, right? Except of course, I don't even know what story questions look like in today's math books. It's probably something like, Mary has 4 iPhones and, but these are, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what are they like, right? So I haven't read a math book.
We don't hate technology here. We use it quite often.
Anyway, so these questions are hilarious. It's like a farmer sold a quantity of cider for $84, and one half of it was at $3 per gallon, and the other half was at 4 gallons. How many barrels did he sell? And then there was this one here. A drover bought a number of oxen at $675, which he sold again for $48 a head, and he gained by the bargain as much as he gave for one ox. How many oxen did he buy? I just don't think that kids. I just don't think they would have these kind of questions today. There's one about. And even here, this is 1839, and yet we've got a mix and match. Question 9 up here, a man paid $120 more for his watch than for the chain. But then the next question down is, in a parcel containing 24 coins of silver and copper, each silver coin is worth as many pence as there are copper coins, and each copper coin is worth as many pence as there are silver coins, and the whole is worth 18 shillings. What? How it's like you're in shillings, and then this one's in dollars, and it's like, boy, it was hard to live back then with all these crazy amounts and currencies that they had to work with. A farmer has his sheep in 4 pastures, and the first third of his... There you go. That's my kind of story questions.
Okay, so some folks were talking about the strange smells when you get migraines. There could possibly be something there as well.
Yeah. So we're back on tainted brain.
We're back. Yeah, tainted brain is the one. It is.
Well, I brought us back. Sorry about that.
It's the one.
There's some great comments about it.
The one right above it is a perfume to drive vermin out of the house. That could be useful.
Well, that's what creates the brain.
Right.
Yeah, that's the evil smell right there. I'm honestly kind of curious about how people stayed fit back in the day, whether it was seen as frivolous since most work was already labor intensive, or if it was admirable.
Right. I think there's the set of people who don't bother to think about that because, of course, their job gives them plenty of exercise, and they're not concerned about that at all. And then there are other people who are in a setting where they do need to exercise. And the most interesting one that pops into my head is William Byrd's diary from the early 18th century. He had sort of secret diaries he written in his own personal shorthand, and he mentions in his diary I think it's the 1725 kind of era, and he talks about what he eats in the morning, and he talks about dancing his dance, and he's doing these calisthenics, right? He talks about doing his
I'm
calisthenics.
just dancing my dance.
I danced my dance. That's what he says in his little thing.
Okay. Dancing my dance. I like that. All right. John Talley, can you elaborate on the term evil sense? This is in the super chat. Evil sense and tainted brains, and how one causes the other. Is that an 18th century gas reference? I think we've covered that pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that one came in a little while ago. So.
Yeah, I could just cover that one. Like I said, we could stay there the whole thing.
We knew that this was going to be a stopping point.
To
that's
remove
for sure.
an evil scent that has tainted the brain.
Can you read the rest of it? Like, not the title, but what's the recipe?
Take of the oil of bayberries, which smell good, half an ounce. Of the powder of frankincense, a dram, so not very much. The oil of mace, a scruple, again, not very much. And as much of the oil of turpentine. Mix them well together and keep them in an essence bottle. And I was I've got some marked on eBay, some really interesting little, essence bottles, long skinny bottles, had direct decorations and a little tiny stopper at the end. Very sort of simple. And they, smelling salts, different things like that they have. This is just well, you know what? Can you imagine the number of evil scents they had?
That's
It's like,
a lot of people have mentioned
walk down that street, don't go over there.
My thing is, though, I'm not sure how anybody was affected by them because they were using so much snuff. And let me tell you, when you use snuff,
You can't smell anything.
you can smell. No, your sinuses are very clear, and it's wonderful. When I worked in powder coating, I got every single person there hooked on snuff. It was wonderful. There was always snuff to be had. Anyway. David Donnelly in Super Chat. Have you ever come across a period reference for fire starting blocks like wood shavings mixed with beeswax or tallow wrapped in paper?
I've seen references to the fungus for the 18th century, but nothing quite like that. I'll check out the index. You go to the next one.
There's some punkwood stuff. A lot of people
Right.
would keep that kind of
Sure.
stuff. But John Marco is in the chat, says, building my own lathe based on your video. Just need the pikes. Hope you decide to sell them or maybe do a video showing how you made them. Well, that's awesome that you're building a lathe based on that video.
Yeah.
I'm stoked about that.
The dead pike is, the one that doesn't do anything. The what would I call it? The passive pike. That's just a spike. You can take any old piece of metal and make a picky point out of it. And the other side, the hard part is that you want to have threads so that one can move in and get tighter. You can get away with just having a passive, point on the other side and using the puppets themselves, and you just move that puppet into the right spot and whack it with a hammer and then tighten it up. It's just nice to have that real fine screw where you can continue to tighten it up just a little bit and a little bit so that the wood is held in place. So that one was just made with threaded rod and ground down on either side to make it so it looked like what it looks. I'm not sure what I would suggest for somebody else.
Mike Kruk is in Super Chat. Book looks great. Ordered one. Happy 4th to you. Thank you.
Thank
Mike.
you.
Terry Martins sends one of those poultry peaches with the word goal. So, yeah. Wendy Carr, she is a new member. So thank you for that. Aaron Howitt, could tainted...
We're back again.
Yeah. Could tainted brain be related to the medical belief that bad scents were capable of transmitting disease, or Did they know better by then? Did they believe the mixture could...
I'm not so sure that it isn't true.
Yeah.
let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here.
Okay. Alchemist009. Greetings from the kitchen of Richard II. The communication devices are not interesting as we here just figured it out. The info is interesting. You provide. We will research more.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Hidden Harvest Grow Lights sent in a super chat. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And then over in the chat, let me think here. I gotta find what I'm looking for. Okay, how was metal made into ribbon or wire or foil in the 18th century?
Ribbon, wire, and foil. So something like foil, you just had the rollers, and they would roll together, and you would keep squeezing your metal down, and it would get into a finer and finer like strip. So you could take something like wire and flatten it out into a thin little ribbon, and for wire you draw it. You could draw it through a metal form. It's like a plate of metal with a hole drilled in it, and you draw it through that, and you can get it skinnier and skinnier. Sometimes you can just pull the wire, and that will work harden it and make it a little bit smaller and strengthen it. So there's all these different sorts of processes they had, different roller mills that they would put things through. Obviously, depending on what the amount of technology. So it's like the machines that we're making, or the tools that we're making. Each primitive tool lets you build a slightly less primitive tool, and you keep going on. So all these metallurgy items allow you to get further and further into making these things like wire and ribbon less expensive. And in North America, we didn't necessarily have these things available, but you'll read different things talking about how, they've just started making steel or iron in this place. Now they have a slitting mill, which is a mill that would run the hot iron through to slice it into bars. So there's like all these different kinds of things that are pretty high tech for kind of what they're doing in the time period. It is fascinating to delve into each one of these little particular sorts of industries.
Wasn't bad air believed to have made people sick in the 18th century? Wasn't it called miasma?
Miasmas, even the word malaria, that's bad air. They're thinking that things like malaria and some of these other diseases have to do with the environment, not with the mosquitoes that come with the environment. So that's the reason why it took so long to figure out something like yellow fever. It's like, well, why are these people getting sick? It isn't because of this, it isn't because of that, but it turns out to be both environmental, but environmental because some insect or something else is bringing along the disease. So yes, they were certainly thinking things like smelly air or humidity, or those things were actually causing these infectious diseases. Who knows? The evil that taints the brain, it could be air.
Right. Over on Super Chat, Ethan Henderson, do you have a favorite outfit or type of garment that you wear? I've noticed you stick to an outfit for a while, but don't notice a pattern per se.
I like to wear wool in the summertime. That's, my main jacket is the sailor short jacket, and that is just worn, all the time because it's short and fairly comfortable and easy to work in. And then it was in the time period too. It was a working man's jacket. So a sailor's jacket, you'd see that different kind of workman because it stops at the waist, and can be a lighter weight material. And those sort of sleeved jackets were that just close enough to being dressy that you weren't looked down upon. Somebody wearing just a shirt in the time period. It's like, what? They're walking around in their underwear. We don't allow that. So it kind of gets you right above that level, but still light and not too dressy. So that's what I wear most of the time. But for something like a live stream, well, I get to wear a colorful vest or a waistcoat.
Lori Shields comes in with the super chat without a comment. Thank you very much. Jay Sanders on super chat, looking at the cabin on Facebook, thinking Ivy has the best playhouse ever. If her daddy will give her a turn.
Ivy doesn't know. No, that's not fair. We don't let Ivy go out and play in the Yeah, well, Ivy has the whole 20 acres, 40 acres there's the pond down there, and she actually has a tree house and all those kinds of fun things to play with.
Noctilus Amateur sent in a super chat without a comment. Amber Crystal Doter says, of course nutmeg is effective to help reduce tainted brain.
Yes.
I know that's what I use.
Obviously. That's what you use, huh? John Talley on super chat yet again. Was tainted brains a common affliction there in the 18th century? Have you heard that particular condition referred to in anything else that you've read?
No, but I'm going to start looking for it. Because I know tainted brain, evil scent that has tainted the brain.
Yeah, we need to title a video of that. I don't even care if it's just making steaks.
It would be a good band name, wouldn't it? Tainted Brain?
And the Tainted Brains.
Yeah.
Somebody asked what Native Americans, what goods they used for trade.
So what they are trading for items, right? So, I mean, it's like two directions. Being traded to the Native Americans, a lot of metal implements like axes, cooking vessels, iron cooking vessels, copper cooking vessels, a lot of cloth, sometimes just to make up into garments and other times as blankets. Those are the main things that are going to them. You'll have smaller things, knives, beads were a real popular thing, different sorts of, metal ornaments. Those are being traded. And then the Native Americans are trading back pelt, animal pelts, and then things that we might not recognize as much, like maple sugar and some other commodities, even grain at times, in different settings. So there are things that are coming back out that they would harvest in the wild and bring into these trading posts. Like Fort Wayne was one of those places.
And speaking of potential future videos, that's a whole topic that would be awesome.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good, interesting references to that can be found, talking about like the inventory of Fort Wayne that we did in the past that talked about all the things that they had available in the trading post, and then there's even reference to some of the things that they got in. So,
Jane Knight, State of Drum Making, Percussors, they're asking if there's anything close to a modern drum kit in the 18th century and what drums did look like.
Well, there's the straight up rope-laced military drums that you'll find that are a standard, like wooden drum shell that you would recognize with the almost exactly the same drum head technology, except of course it's a skin head, a goat skin or whatever, with the rim, and then those two rims are squeezed together with the rope, and that tensions that drum up. So their drum technology was actually very, very similar to standard, drum heads drum construction that we think of today. Yeah. Now, coming up with multiples, that's not a typical thing that you see. I mean, usually the drummer had one drum. That's what he's working with.
So, Aaron Howard says, trained brain,
There we go. I have no idea why it keeps doing that.
Okay, so we've got a couple more super chats, but somebody just asked, does Townsend's have a Patreon, which leads us to our Patreon
Oh gosh,
supporters.
I almost forgot Patreon.
Yes, we do.
Yes. Townsend's for the channel, specifically to help us, support what we do on the channel, making videos. People help us out. And every week I try to cover the brand new Patreon people for the week past. We've had a short week because today's Wednesday, but I still have a whole bunch of Patreon names. So, I'm trying to read this first one. Taylor Couliard Rodak. Undoubtedly, I got that one name wrong, but Gregory True, Michael Sharp, somebody just Mike, James Lake, Micah Gasser, Antonio Rodriguez, Matthew H. Almost got that one wrong. Houseblend, Samantha Loeb. It's so tricky when it's just one letter. How am I supposed to say that? Falcon, Miss Primrose Montague, The Wheelman 84, Tataratat. So one it's EVS, then just M, and Chris 5291. Those are all the brand new Patreon folks, and Patreon is one of those ways that people can just support us like once a month, and it's whatever you choose, $2, $5, whatever. So we've got a lot of folks that support us on Patreon that way, and it is such a tremendous help. Sometimes we have special live streams for Patreon folks and things like that. So if you're interested in helping us out that way, you'll find the link down in the description section.
Well, thank you so much, Patreon folks. James Fry is on Super Chat. I have a great collection of snuff boxes from the time period which I use. I love snuff. Pleasure make a replica snuff box for the shop so I can add it to mine. Well, have we talked about making a snuff box?
No, I don't think so. I've got one right here.
What?
Very interesting little snuff box from the time period. Actually, this is probably 19th century. The fascinating industry that was going on right there around 1800 and after that. And it's a snuff box. It's made of pressed paper. Even though it looks like it might be metal or horn or whatever, it's like a super duper pressed, and they put special designs on them, and yeah, I want to do that sometime.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Ethan Henderson on Super Chat. A lot of your recipes have a variety of spices. Some have few, but I don't recall a spice video. What varieties of spices did common households have?
In the recipe books, we find a lot of references to, the classics, whether multiple different kinds of salt. We think of salt, and of course, they had multiple different kinds of salt. Obviously, standard black pepper. Sometimes you see references to other peppers, and especially something like the long pepper, which is interesting kind of exotic pepper. Obviously, nutmeg is showing up in just like every other recipe, right? And its sister mace is showing up a lot. Ginger is an interesting one that shows up in a great quantity of them because it was fairly inexpensive for a kind of spice compared to something like nutmeg. Ginger was very inexpensive. And then we've got the classics like cloves, and we'll find, of course, soup herbs being used. You could kind of call them spices, rosemary, thyme, those things like that. I'm trying to think of any other fancy ones. Allspice shows up a lot. It's also called Jamaica pepper. So a lot of those kinds of spices, and some of them weren't as expensive as you might believe. And even in that, again, 1811 inventory of the fort at Fort Wayne, the trading post, which is in the, kind of in the boonies. Yeah, they had nutmeg in stock. Yes, they had pepper. Yes, they had cinnamon, Even in very remote locations, those spices were available. May have been expensive, but they were available.
Okay, we've got quite a bit to get through real quick, and we're getting close to time. Aaron Howitt says, typo, tainted brain, like tainted love song. So, yes, I get it now. Sorry. Keltoid 5, would this book make a good cross-reference for Diderot's?
It certainly might. There are a lot of different trade things that this, you sort of, it gives you the, especially, it seems to be decorative. I'd have to go through it and really kind of nail them all down. Housekeeping-y kind of recipes. So, yeah, I think so.
Forgotten Games asks on Super Chat, was all herbalism considered witchcraft in 1800?
No, not at all. I don't think so. In fact, by the time you get to the 18th century, the concept of witchcraft, that kind of stuff, it's like, it's most of the cultures that are here in North America are not really concerning themselves that much with that concept at all, and so.
Especially at this time period.
Right, exactly. It's. I think it was most of that you're seeing where they're talking about in the Northeast, Virginia. They were scoffing at that kind of concept, and even in the middle colonies and in Pennsylvania, very little was talked about like that. Like it wasn't a social problem or any. They were concerned about that at all.
Amber Crystal Daughter again. In Super Chat, throwing in the end of my chat budget to buy some cider, a switchel for the homestead laborers.
Woo.
Thank you so much. John Talley on Super Chat, what is snuff? How is it used? Snuff is very finely pulverized tobacco. Usually has some other kinds of essence or scents in it, and you snort it just a little bit at a time. Some people will twist their fingers as they sniff, or some people will use this little indention in your thumb, which some people even refer to as a spot for snuff. But yeah, and it's usually in a little box or tin, and that's how you use it. Don't try that at home, kids.
Yeah. And it wasn't just a man thing. It was definitely popular with women also.
Yeah, if you ever see an older movie where somebody like maybe has a necklace and they unscrew it and they pull something out and sniff, that's usually snuff that they're representing there. So it was made into like different decorative ways to carry it with you. It was very in vogue. Ethan Henderson on Super Chat, following on my spice question, you'd say an 18th century household was about a step above a college student but below a middle class spice rack? Question mark.
Try that again.
How about this? Would you say that an 18th century household was about a step above a college student but below a middle class spice rack?
Is that a yes or no question?
Yeah. So they have more at hand than what a modern college student would have, but not nearly the amount that maybe a middle class family
I
would
think
have.
so. Yeah, that's probably. Obviously, it depends on the household, doesn't it? And
yeah, that word average doesn't really work.
Right, and there are also substitutes if you don't have a lot of those kinds of things available.
I love those recipes.
There are some herbs that you can get. There's like a herb that tastes like pepper, but it's just an herby thing that grows up. It's almost like a crabgrass. And there's wild ginger, and there's different things that you can use that kind of give you that spice.
Yeah, it's time to sign off.
We are there. It's been a crazy Tainted Brain Wednesday.
Yeah. Hey, have a great holiday, everyone. Thank you for coming on.
I think we need a Tainted Brain emoji.
Oh, man.
That might be the next emoji.
Jeez. Give them the old tainted brain.
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm so glad you were able to join us on this live stream. It is always a blast, and you just never know what is going to come up, what strange tainted brain things we are going to find in the books as we go through them and try these things out, because that's the great part, is not only do we get to read about them in the book, but I want to make up some of this tainted brain recipe. That's
the tainted brain solution.
Right. We need this.
The antidote.
I want to make the vial so we can, keep it on us. So it's going to be.
Do you think we could sell it?
I think I would buy it.
Oh man.
So thank you so much for joining us. You guys truly make it happen out there. Watching the videos, every single view is a vote saying, yes, I like that. And that tells YouTube something. So thank you for what you do by watching the videos, by giving, when you help us out with Super Chat or the Patreon people, that is a tremendous help for what we do. And we're always digging for ways to connect what's happening in the 18th century and help us out with our life today and understanding our life today and just having fun with it. I love it. And I want to thank you guys so much for what you do. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Ryan. You guys have a tremendous weekend. We'll see you later.